Okay, on the internet, you're going to The Outsiders, DVUSD. There it is right there, dvusd.org. And I provided the link for you in Google Classroom. All right. Before we go on to chapter 5, and let's just check and make sure we know what page that is. Chapter 5, page 59, DVUSD. All right. Here's the last part of chapter 4. But this church gave me a kind of creepy feeling. What do you call it? Premonition? What's premonition mean? I flopped down on the floor and immediately decided not to do any more flopping. The floor was stone and hard. Johnny stretched out beside me, resting his head on his arm. I started to say something to him, but I went to sleep before I could get the words out of my mouth. But Johnny didn't notice. He was asleep too. All right, so here we are for today. You're going to go to DVUSD and read along with me. I will read one page aloud, and then you will read the next page silently. Remember to visualize as you read. Questions to think about. What color hair does Pony Boy have? What color hair does Johnny have? What do Pony Boy and Johnny do to their hair? What does Robert Frost's poem that Pony Boy memorizes mean? Nature's first green is gold, her hardest hue to hold. Her early leaf's a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf, so Eden sank to grief. So dawn goes down to day. Nothing gold can stay. There we have it. And so we're going to move on. We're chapter 5. I woke up late in the afternoon. For a second, I didn't know where I was. You know how it is when you wake up. You know how it is when you wake up in a strange place and wonder where in the world you are until memory comes rushing over you like a wave. I have convinced myself that I had dreamed everything that had happened the night before. I'm really home in bed, I thought. It's late and both Derry and Soda Pop are up. Derry's cooking breakfast, and in a minute he and Soda will come in and drag me out of bed and wrestle me down and tickle me until I think I'll die if they don't stop. It's me and Soda's turn to do the dishes after we eat, and then we'll go outside and play football. Johnny and Two-Bit and I will get Derry on our side, since Johnny and I are so small and Derry's the best player. It'll go like the usual weekend morning. I tried telling myself that while I lay on the cold rock floor, wrapped up in Dally's jacket and listening to the wind rushing through the trees, dry leaves outside. Okay, now you're going to read this page silently to yourself. Pause. Maybe he had already been worked over by the fuzz and was waiting to get the next page. Get the electric chair since he wouldn't tell where I was. Maybe Dally had been killed in a car wreck or something and no one would ever know where I was, and I'd just die up here alone and turn into a skeleton. My overactive imagination was running away with me again. Sweat ran down my face and back, and I was trembling. My head swam, and I leaned back and closed my eyes. I guess it was partly delayed shock. Finally, my stomach calmed down, and I relaxed a little, hoping that Johnny would remember cigarettes. I was scared, sitting there by myself. I heard someone coming up through the dead leaves toward the back of the church, and I ducked inside the door. Then I heard a whistle, long and low, ending in a sudden high note. I knew that whistle well enough. It was used by us and the shepherd gang for "Who's There?" I returned it carefully, then darted out the door so fast that I fell off the steps and sprawled flat under Johnny's nose. I propped myself on my elbows and grinned up at him. "Hey, Johnny, fancy meeting you here." He looked down at me over a big package. I swear, Pony Boy, you're getting to act more like Two-Bit every day." I tried unsuccessfully to cock an eyebrow. "Who's acting?" I rolled over and sprang up, happy that someone was there. "What'd you get?" Come on inside." Dally told us to stay inside." We went in. Johnny dusted off a table with his jacket and started taking things out of the sack and lining them up neatly. A week's supply of bologna, 2 loaves of bread, a box of matches," Johnny went on. I got tired of watching him do it all, so I started digging into the sack myself. Whee! I sat down on a dusty chair and stared. A paperback copy of Gone with the Wind. How'd you know I always wanted one? Okay, now you'll read this page. Next page. I looked at Johnny imploringly. Johnny sighed. "I'm gonna cut mine too and wash the grease out, but I can't bleach it. I'm too dark-skinned to look okay blonde." "Oh, come on, Pony Boy," he pleaded. "It'll grow back." "Okay," I said, wide-eyed. "Get it over with." Johnny flipped out the razor edge of his switch, took hold of my hair, and started sawing on it. I shuddered. "Not too short," I begged. "Johnny, please." Finally, it was over with. My hair looked funny, scattered over the floor in tufts. "It's lighter than I thought it was," I said, examining it. "I can see what I look like now." "Nah," Johnny said slowly, staring at me. We gotta bleach it first." After I'd sat in the sun for 15 minutes to dry the bleach, Johnny let me look in the old cracked mirror we'd found in a closet. I did a double take. My hair was even lighter than soda pops. I'd never combed it to the side like that. It just didn't look like me. It made me look younger and scaredier too. Boy, howdy, I thought. This really makes me look tough. I looked like a blasted pansy. I was miserable. Johnny handed me the knife. He looked scared, too. "Cut the front and thin out the rest. I'll comb it back after I wash it." "Johnny," I said tiredly, "you can't wash your hair in that freezing water in this weather. You'll get cold." He only shrugged. "Go ahead and cut it." I did the best I could. He went ahead and washed it anyway, using the bar of soap he'd bought. I was glad I had to run away with him instead of with Two-Bit or Steve or Dally. That would be one thing they'd never think of. Soap. Okay, and then you read this one. Pause. Bottom of the page you read. Things were laying out wide open, just waiting for somebody to slick like Two-Bit to come and pick 'em up. He could have walked out with half the store. He leaned back beside me and I could feel him trembling. Good old Two-Bit," he said in a quavering voice. He must have been as homesick as I was. "Remember how he was wisecracking last night?" I said. Just last night, we were walking Cherry and Marcia over to Two-Bit's. Just last night, we were laying in the lot, looking up the stars and dreaming." "Stop it," Johnny gasped from between clenched teeth. "Shut up about last night. I killed a kid last night. He couldn't have been over 17 or 18, and I killed him. How'd you like to live with that? He was crying. I held him like Soda had held him the day we found him lying in the lot. I didn't mean to, he finally blurted out, but they were drowning you, and I was scared. He was quiet for a minute. There sure is a lot of blood in people. He got up suddenly and began pacing back and forth, slapping his pockets. What are we going to do? I was crying by then. It was getting dark, and I was cold and lonesome. I closed my eyes and leaned my head back, but the tears came anyway. This is my fault, Johnny said in a miserable voice. He had stopped crying when I started. For bringing a little 13-year-old kid along. You ought to go home. You can't get into any trouble. You didn't kill him. No, I screamed at him. I'm 14. I've been 14 for a month, and I'm in as much trouble as you are. I'll stop crying in a minute. I can't help it. He slumped down beside me. I didn't mean it like that, Pony Boy. Don't cry, Pony Boy. We'll be okay. Don't cry. I leaned against him and bawled until I went to sleep. And then this is your page to read here. I bet there were cool old guys, he said, his eyes glowing, after I had read the part about them riding into sure death. Because they were gallant, they reminded me of Dally. Dally? I said, startled. Shoot, he ain't got any more manners than I do, and you saw how he treated those girls the other night. Sorta's more like them southern boys. Yeah, in the manners bit, and the charm too, I guess, Johnny said slowly. But one night I saw Dally getting picked up by the fuzz, and he kept real cool and calm the whole time. They was getting him for breaking out the windows in the school building, and it was Two-Bit who did that. And Dally knew it, but he just took the sentence without batting an eye or even denying it. That's gallant. That was the first time I realized the extent of Johnny's hero worship for Dally Winston. Of all of us, Dally was the one I liked least. He didn't have Soda's understanding or Dash or Two-Bit's humor or even Derry's Superman qualities. But I realized that these three appealed to me because they were like the heroes in the novels I read. Dally was real. I liked my books and clouds and sunsets. Dally was so real, he scared me. Johnny and I never went to the front of the church. You could see the front from the road, and sometimes farm. Kids rode their horses by on their way to the store. So we stayed in the very back, usually sitting on the steps and looking across the valley. We could see 4 miles, see the ribbon of highway and the small dots that were houses and cars. We couldn't watch the sunsets since the dark faced east, but I loved to look at the colors of the fields and the soft shadings of the horizon. One morning, I woke up early than usual. Johnny and I slept huddled together for warmth. Dally had been right when he said it would get cold where we were going. Being careful not to wake Johnny up, I went to sit on the steps and smoke a cigarette. And now here's your page here with the poem, and you'll read the rest of this chapter. What does the poem mean?